Coming out on May 17th, we have a new Shudder film called Nightwatch, Demons Are Forever, and I got an early screener from the fine folks over at Shudder to check this film out and let you guys know if this film is worth your time. So stick around and let's discuss it. Nightwatch, Demons Are Forever is about Martin's daughter Emma, who meets with Wörmer in his isolation cell, and this pulls the convicted commissioner out of his coma and sets in motion a chain of fateful events. The film stars Nikolaj Casper Waldau, Kim Bodina, Ulf Pilgaard, Sonja Richter, and Fanny Bornedal, and was directed by Ole Bornedal, and he's done films like The Nightwatch 1994, Nightwatch 1997, and The Possession. So just a small recap before we start talking about this film. So in the first film, Nightwatch in 1994, you had a boy named Martin who worked as a night watcher at this morgue, and there was a bunch of bodies that were getting scalped, women in particular. So there's this killer that is on the loose, and he turns out to try to frame Martin. The guy's name is Wörmer, and he tries to get him locked up and get him framed for all these murders. And eventually him and his girlfriend, they eventually shoot him, in which we think that he's dead. Now flash forward to 30 years later, he is not actually dead. This time he is in this mental institution. The film, it starts off with this boy named Ben. He is being questioned by the police, and they talk about these murders, the same kind of murders that were happening in the original film. They mention Wörmer. He goes absolutely nuts, and they say that he's harmless, but he goes absolutely nuts. He breaks this glass, and then we start to go into our film, and we start to actually get introduced to Emma. Now, Emma is the daughter of Martin. This time, Martin, he's really having a lot of trouble coping. He's taking all this medicine. He's thinking about suicide. His wife recently committed suicide as well because she was in the events of that first film. Emma is in college. She has a boyfriend named Frederick, and she wants to make some extra money, so she asks her professor, hey, I want to take this night watch job. So that's exactly what she does. And when she gets there, she has this woman really explaining certain things that actually happened 30 years ago, and certain rooms are off limits, and then there's certain ones that they actually do not use. The setting itself is really great. You got the flickering lights, there's darkness. Some of the music that they actually bring into this setting is great. So I actually really did like that aspect of the film. And before long, Emma is starting to search for answers of Wörmer, because her father, he's really depressed, and he won't really talk about Wörmer and the events that actually unfolded 30 years ago. So she finds out that he is at this psych ward, and she wants to go visit him. And before long after that visit, people start to die the same way. Starting off with the positives, I think Emma here, I think she is the best about this film. I think her acting ability is pretty good here despite the limitations of the script. She's getting through this role the best she can despite the limitations of the film itself and the limitations of what she has to actually do throughout this film. She at least tries to keep it interesting, which I do give her a lot of props. The music here, I think that it is elevated in certain portions of the film, specifically when they're in the morgue. They have some horror music, and they kind of, egg it on a little bit with trying to elevate the horror moments within those parts of the film, but there's not really a lot of it, so it's kind of a minor kind of positive, but it is a little bit of a positive to throw in there. There also is the original song, the jingle that you hear in the original movie, which was a really nice touch. The setting itself, obviously, in the morgue is a great setting. However, they really don't use it to the advantage. I think they use it even less than the original film, which is something that I wanted them to use more in the original film, because I felt like, again, it's such a great setting for a horror film. And in the original film, there's some strange things that happen, but I think even here, there's even less of that. So it just feels like the setting is kind of an afterthought in much of this film. The pacing of this film is absolutely terrible. I think at least 20 minutes could be actually cut from this film. And the original film had the same problem as well. I remember watching that film. Nothing really interesting actually happened in that original film until about 80 minutes in the film. And the last 25 minutes is when it really turned into its slasher. It had the jingle, and it really kind of amped up. Now, in this film, a lot of the stuff, it really amps up later in the film as well. The kills, I feel, are pretty standard. A lot of them, again, are off screen, just like in the original, how they talk about how women are getting their heads scalped. They don't show any of that in the original, and they don't show any of that here as well. A lot of it is just after the fact, and you know that it's going down, which kind of sucks, because you would think something like this, it would be a little bit more violent. I think the most violent thing that actually happens in this film is you have one crazy individual where they're using a knife, and I'm not going to actually describe exactly what happens with that, but that knife, what they actually do with it, is probably the most craziest part about this movie as far as violence and blood. The killers themselves, one of them is really crazy, and I definitely bought into that person's character. I felt they developed them enough and they were believable enough that I actually believed that they were actually going around killing these women. Now, the second one, though, I definitely did not believe them whatsoever. They had no character development for this person whatsoever, and it was just kind of random to me. What also was random to me is the fact that the killer one time kills this person, and they're wearing this paper mache mask that looks like a Michael Myers mask. They use it for that one killing, and then we never see it again. I was just like, why even include that in the film? I also mentioned the morgue, how it is not really used. There's only 2 horror scenes, one where Emma is looking around in the morgue. There's some horror music in the background. She hears some screaming and some yelling. That's your one horror scene. And then you have a second scene where Emma is off doing something. Her friend is watching over the morgue. There's some awful EDM music that is playing for about 2.5 minutes. And she is going around and she's searching around in the morgue. And it's dark and the lights are flickering. It's got that atmosphere. And then the scene actually cuts, so you never get anything again with that. Although it does play out later on, but at the same time, you definitely had a missed opportunity. I just don't think I really understand why 3 of these films actually exist. I didn't see the remake of 1997, so I can't really comment on that. But just the original film and this film as well, the centralized idea of being in a morgue feels very creepy. It can be downright horrifying, but I just feel like in both films, they never really capitalize on the idea of a bunch of dead people in a morgue. You could have them maybe rising from the dead or something, maybe some crazy flashbacks to how they got there, or something really horrifying or imagery, or maybe a jump scare or something. I mean, it just feels like it's just a creepy setting. It's dark at times, there's flickering lights, but that's really it. There's really nothing else that really makes the film feel very horrifying. It just feels like one of those films where a lot of stuff is happening in the background, and even in both of them, where you have a killer just going around killing people, and specifically women, and that's really it. You never see those kills on screen, so you never actually feel the momentum of these kills. You never feel like, oh man, this is really gruesome. I mean, I'm really afraid of this killer. I just never feel that in either of these films. Although there is one scene, I will say, in the original film where it does turn into the slasher vibe, and I was like, I wish we had more of that, but this film, it doesn't even do that. It's even worse, I would say. So as far as the score for this film, I would give it a 1.5 out of 5. It just wasn't very good. I was pretty bored during this film. I definitely wanted more from it. I definitely think there's a film in there that could be good and definitely could really elevate the story a little bit more and use the setting more. For God's sakes, you have a really good setting. Why not use it to the fullest extension that you can? And I just don't think this director does. So unfortunately, this film is not very good. I can't recommend it, and that's why I give it a 1.5 out of 5. However, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was kind of meh? How do you think it compares to the original? How does it compare to the remake, if you've seen that? Is the remake even worth me actually watching? Leave any and all comments down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.